We will be starting the session in 5 minutes. We're currently waiting for more participants to log in, so please bear with us. Hello and welcome to the Q&A webinar for the 2019 Call for Applications for Mobility for Youth, also known as Key Action 105. Hello and welcome to the Q&A webinar for the 2019 Call for Applications for Mobility for Youth, also known as Key Action 105. My name is Timur Venter and I am an Assistant Programme Manager in the Erasmus Plus Youth team at the UK National Agency. I'm also accompanied by my colleagues today, Julianne and Mercedes, who will be answering your questions via the chat facility. This session has been designed to give a general overview of Key Action 105, with ample opportunities to post questions and encourage discussions. We have prepared some slides based around the questions frequently asked during webinars and events from the previous calls, and the questions we receive via the help desk. If you have questions about a topic not covered, please do ask Julianne and Mercedes via the chat facility. We will also be sending a copy of these slides, a recording of the presentation, and a handout of helpful links to all registrants for the webinar. Before we make a start, we would like to cover a few practicalities for the webinar today. We are using audio, so please let us know if you are able to hear me by clicking the hand icon. Please use the chat facility on the right-hand side to communicate with my colleagues. During the webinar, we may share your general questions and our answers with all participants, as the information may be useful. We will now go through the presentation, starting with an overview of Key Action 1 Youth. We will cover key areas to consider when making an application, allocating some time at the end of each section for questions and answers. It is important to note that this session is not designed to look at how to complete the application form, but rather to answer any specific queries you may have. For a step-by-step guide on how to complete your application, refer to our Key Action 1 Youth pre-recorded webinar, which will be available on the Erasmus Plus YouTube channel. A link will also be provided. If you prefer to read the notes on how to complete the e-form, you can find these in our guide for applicants, which is available on the Erasmus Plus website under the section Apply for Youth Mobility Funding. Before we talk about Key Action 1 Youth and what you can do as part of a KA 105 project, it is worth being aware of the wider Erasmus Plus programme objectives and the European policies that the programme and also KA Youth aims to address. As Erasmus Plus is a European programme, it is important to link your KA1 project to the overarching European priorities and show the added value of carrying out your project on a European level with other organisations within and neighbouring the EU. When doing so, it is important to keep the general objective of the Erasmus Plus programme in mind, as well as the important features of the programme. The general objective of Erasmus Plus is to contribute to a number of policies. The objectives are covered in more detail in Part A of the Erasmus Plus programme guide, as well as the following important features of the Erasmus Plus programme, which are the Europe 2020 strategy, including the headline education target, the strategic framework for European cooperation in education and training, or ET 2020, the sustainable development of partner countries in the field of higher education, the renewed framework for European cooperation in the youth field from 2010 to 2018, the objective of developing the European dimension in sport, in particular grassroots sport in line with the EU work plan for sport, and the promotion of European values in accordance with Article 2 of the Treaty on the European Union, which includes human dignity, freedom, democracy, and equality. The important features of Erasmus Plus are detailed in Part A of the program guide, and include. So, on to what you can do as part of a Key Action 1 Youth project. Within Key Action 1 Youth, there are opportunities for young people and youth workers. The types of projects that can be supported under this Key Action are mobility projects for young people and youth workers that can comprise of youth exchanges and youth workers training and networking activities. In the following slides, we will review each of these activity types in more detail. Youth exchanges enable groups of young people from various countries to meet during an exchange, live together, and work collaboratively on a chosen topic. Young people taking part in youth exchange activities must be aged between 13 and 30. It is important to note that the minimum age of 13 must be reached by the start of the activity, and the maximum age of 30 must not be exceeded at the time of the application deadline. The overall project duration can be a minimum of 3 months and a maximum of 24 months. The actual youth exchange activity duration can be between 5 and 21 days, and this is excluding travel days. Activities can include workshops, debates, role plays, outdoor activities, or arts and crafts related activities. Tourist or holiday activities, festivals, and performance tours are not eligible youth exchange activities. All of these are to be designed and prepared by young people before the exchange, and young people should be actively involved with the project at all stages of its delivery. For this type of project, there needs to be at least 2 participating organizations from Erasmus Plus program countries and/or partner countries neighboring the EU. You should refer to the program guide or our website for the list of participating countries that fall under this category. Each country involved in the project, that is, both applicant and partners, must put forward a national group of participants for the exchange. Each group must comprise of a minimum of 4 young people and 1 group leader. Young people must be supported and supervised during the exchange itself by group leaders from the participating organizations who are aged 18 or over, and who assume responsibility for leading the activity and ensuring the health, safety, and welfare of the participants. A total number of participants for each youth exchange must be between 16 and 60 participants in total, plus group leaders. Also, multiple exchanges within the same project are possible, allowing for reciprocal exchanges. Advanced planning visits can also be included in these projects. An advanced planning visit is eligible only for youth exchange projects. The purpose of the APV is to ensure high-quality activities by facilitating and preparing administrative arrangements, carrying out any health and safety evaluations or risk assessments, building trust and understanding, and setting up a solid partnership between the organizations involved. Young participants can also be involved in the visit to integrate them fully in the project design. An advanced planning visit must take place in the country of the receiving organization ahead of the youth exchange. The duration of an APV must be of maximum 2 days, excluding travel days, and the number of participants is generally 1 participant or group leader per group. There is a possibility to raise the number to 2 participants per group, provided the second person is a young person who will take part in the youth exchange activity. Mobility of youth workers. These projects focus on mobility of youth workers, supporting the professional development of youth workers of any age. Projects can last from 3 to 24 months, and activities can last from 2 days to 2 months. These projects include transnational or international seminars, training courses, contact-making events and study visits, or a job shadowing or observation period abroad in an organization active in the youth field. The maximum number of participants here is 50. It's worth noting that an expected part of a Key Action 1 Youth project is the use of non-formal or informal learning, and that all participants are expected to receive recognition for what they learn during the project. This can be through national recognition systems or through the use of European recognition tools. One of these tools is Youthpass, and all young people and youth workers involved in Key Action 1 mobilities can receive a Youthpass certificate. The Youthpass certificate describes and validates non-formal and informal learning that has taken place within the project's activities. It can also be used as a guide during projects to encourage learning. More details and guidance can be found on the official website at www.youthpass.eu. So before you make an application, you need to know whether your organization is eligible to take part in the Erasmus Plus program. The following organization types are eligible to apply for youth funding: public bodies at local, regional, and national levels, non-profit organizations, NGOs, including a European Youth NGO, an informal group of young people. This consists of at least 4 young people aged between 13 and 30, with one member of the group aged 18 or over taking the role of a group leader. Other eligible organization types include associations and social enterprises, as long as these are registered with the Charity Commission. An association of regions, a European grouping of territorial cooperation, or a profit-making body active in corporate social responsibility. Please be aware that UK organisations can participate in the Erasmus Plus projects either as a project partner or as an applicant, as long as they have a legal personality. Therefore, UK participating organisations must be able to evidence that they are legally registered in the United Kingdom and are incorporated or have a separate legal personality. That is a legal distinction between the owner and the business. Organizations with unincorporated legal structures, such as sole traders, are not eligible to apply under Erasmus+. However, there are some limited exceptions to this rule within the youth field only. Please be aware, though, that the only accepted unincorporated structures for 2019 youth applications include registered charities on the Charity Commission website for England and Wales, Scotland or Northern Ireland, including trusts and associations. Unincorporated charities that cannot provide proof of registration with their country's Charity Commission are not eligible to apply. Additional information on eligible types of organizations and the definition of informal groups can also be found in the Key Action 1 Youth Guide for Applicants, Section 2, Check that you are an eligible organization. Mobility projects will involve several organizations, which will have to assume some roles and tasks. We have 3 types of roles: coordinator, sending organization, and receiving or hosting organization. The coordinator is the main applicant who will be the one applying for the project and funding on behalf of all the other partner organizations. Organizations must be based and registered in the UK to be able to apply, or in the case of informal groups, members must be resident in the UK. The coordinator of the project must also act as a sending or receiving organization in the project activities. The sending organization will be in charge of sending young people or youth workers abroad. This includes organizing the necessary practical arrangements and pre-departure preparation of participants. The receiving organization, sometimes referred to as the hosting organization, will be in charge of hosting the actual activity and developing the program of activities for participants in cooperation with the other participating organizations. Both the sending and receiving organizations are responsible for providing support to the participants throughout the lifetime of the project and during all its phases. All organizations should determine and agree upon roles and responsibilities from the outset of the project. Signing partnership agreements beforehand is highly recommended. So, if you are considering applying, here are our upcoming deadlines for Key Action 1 Youth applications submitted under the 2019 call. All applications must be submitted online by 11 a.m. UK time on the day of the deadlines indicated above. You will need to apply using the online web-based application form. This application has to be completed in your web browser using the Erasmus Plus Forms website, which you log into using your EU login account. For further details about how to access and complete this application form, you should refer to our KA 105 Guide for Applicants and also our Key Action 1 Youth pre-recorded webinar, both of which provide step-by-step information about filling in the application form. You can find links to the application forms on our website under the section Apply for Youth Mobility Funding. Ensure you begin working on your application as soon as possible. Our team is extremely busy in the run-up to this deadline, and while we do our best to support all applicants, this may not be possible if you submit questions right before the deadline. We would strongly urge organizations to submit their applications at their earliest opportunity. There is an alternative submissions procedure in place should you encounter any technical issues which prevent you from submitting your application. This process is outlined in our Guide for Applicants and should be adhered to if you wish for the NA to consider your application. We will now explain how you can register with the Erasmus Plus program and start the process of applying for funding. Most organizations that have previously participated either with Erasmus Plus or with European Commission funding will already have a participant identification code, also referred to as a PIC. We will briefly go through the process of obtaining a PIC for those of you new to the funding. So how can you obtain a PIC? To apply for Erasmus Plus funding, the applicant organization and all partners must have a participant identification code, a PIC. If your organization does not have a PIC, whoever can act as a legal entity appointed representative, or LEA, must first register on the EU login to create an account. The LEA is the central contact point for any queries that the national agency may have regarding your PIC, and as you can only have one PIC for your organization, it is important that you choose a LEA who is contactable and able to represent your entire organization. Using the email address used to register on EU login, the LEA will then need to register on the participant portal to generate a PIC for your organization. That PIC should then be used to apply for funding. A PIC is essential for the application, but is also necessary to access the European Commission's other digital tools required to manage your project. If you already have a PIC from previous application years, this should be used to apply for mobility funding. You can only have one PIC per organization, and generating multiple PICs may cause delays with processing your application as the national agency resolves this issue. How can you check your institution's PIC? If you're unsure of your institution's PIC, you can search for your organization via the participant portal in the Organizations tab. You should always search before creating a PIC and try to use different combinations of your organization's name, if applicable. Now, do you need to upload documents? Each organization is required to upload a number of documents, which include a financial identification form and a legal entity form. There are 3 different legal entity forms for private companies, public bodies, or natural persons or individuals. Therefore, you will have to select the correct form. Both forms will have to be accompanied by supporting documents, which are as follows. The financial identification form needs to have a recent bank statement as a supporting document. Alternatively, if this is not possible, the form will need to be stamped and signed by your bank, confirming the details provided. The legal entity form needs to have any document of incorporation or registration which proves the legality of the organization as a supporting document. We will now take a few minutes to answer any specific queries you may have about the PIC process. As previously mentioned, if your question is general, we may share the response with all participants as the information may be useful. As previously mentioned, this session is not designed to cover the full application form. However, we would like to take this opportunity to address some frequently asked questions about the form. For full guidance on how to complete the application form, please refer to our pre-recorded webinar or our guides for applicants. So, is there only one application form under Key Action 1 Youth? The answer is yes, there is only one application form for Key Action 105, which is used regardless of the activity type, youth exchanges and mobility of youth workers. If you're submitting an application for both activity types, this can be 2 separate applications submitted or one combined. If you're submitting an application for both types of activity, it needs to be clear within the application how the 2 activities are linked and will contribute to meeting the overall objectives of the project as a whole. You should ensure that you include sufficient detail about both types of activity in all sections of the application form and ensure that the budget section of the application form is consistent with the activities requested. Another question is whether you have to include information on your partner organizations. The answer is yes, all partners must be identified at application stage. If your application does not list any partners, then your application will be rejected. As you will see in the KA 105 application form, there are specific areas requesting information regarding your partners, which is similar to the information requested for applicants. A strong partnership is crucial, and therefore there are areas within the application where the expertise, skills, and experience of your partners and their main people working for the project should be detailed. Now, what are the award criteria? For a Key Action 105 project to be considered for funding, it must meet the quality requirements or the award criteria for the key action. The award criteria has 3 core areas: relevance of the project, quality of the project design and implementation, and impact and dissemination. You will find detailed information on each of these in the 2019 Programme Guide. For Key Action 1 Youth, refer to page 81. It is important to note that when looking at the relevance of the project, it is mentioned that the project needs to be in line with the objectives of the specific action and the overall objectives of the Erasmus Plus programme. This information can be found on page 7 of the 2019 Programme Guide. Who should you select as your legal representative, and what do you do if it changes? You should select a person who is authorized to enter into a legally binding commitment on behalf of your organization. This may be your finance manager or another member of the senior management team. If your application is approved, this person will also be the signatory for the grant agreement. That is, your contract with the national agency, and the person who takes on the terms and conditions attached to the grant on behalf of the organization. If your legal representative changes, it is important to notify the UKNE immediately, and we will inform you about the required steps to have this change recorded and approved. The NA will provide you with a form to process the change that we strongly urge to be returned to us as soon as possible, along with a letter of appointment so we can update your organization's project. So, in these situations, you must expect that it will cause a delay to then get the form completed. If the legal representative is changing whilst you are completing the application form, you can simply record the new legal representative within the application form. Is the Declaration of Honour the only annex required? No. In addition to the Declaration of Honour, 2 other important annexes should be attached to the application form. Firstly, you are required to attach the timetable of activities for each activity within the project. For example, if you have multiple youth exchanges or youth worker mobilities, or if you are also including an advanced planning visit. All timetables can be saved in one document, but you should use additional tabs for additional activities. The second mandatory documents are partner mandates. Partner mandates are now no longer available on our website, as these are generated from your application form data. Once you have completed all partner information in the application form, you will be able to download the partner mandates, which should be pre-populated. These need to be hand-signed by each partner and the applicant, and then scanned and uploaded to the application form before submission. What is the difference between project duration and activity mobility duration? Project duration refers to the full duration of the actual project, which can be between 3 and 24 months for youth exchanges and mobility of youth workers. Activity or mobility duration refers to the actual duration of the activities implemented during the lifetime of a project. For youth exchanges, this can be between 5 to 21 days, and for mobility of youth workers, this can be between 2 days to 2 months. Can you replace participants from a country with participants from a different country after your application has been approved? The answer is yes. There is scope for changes within your existing partnerships. For example, one of your partner countries may have a lower uptake of participants, or participants may withdraw, or even the actual partner organization may withdraw from the project. In these circumstances, you may want to bring participants from other partner countries in order to keep your numbers balanced and ensure full use of the funding. If these situations occur, it is extremely important that you inform the NA as soon as you have decided to do this, as this may require a formal amendment to your project. Also, you must be aware that given that your grant was approved in line with the information submitted at application stage, the travel amounts have been approved based on specific distance bands. Therefore, if you make changes where the participants travel from, the amount approved will not change if the distance band of the new participants is higher. Over the previous application rounds, applicants often encountered difficulties with the form acknowledging completed sections and/or budgets. The NA strongly recommended that the form and sections are completed in order so as to minimize issues with the form. When entering the details for each activity and flow, you will be required to enter participant numbers. When you begin to enter information on the travel and organizational support budget, the participant numbers can be adjusted. Therefore, please ensure your participant numbers are consistent throughout each budget heading to avoid losing crucial funding for each participant. When adding flows or activities, you may sometimes be required to go back to the main activities section for the form to acknowledge and validate any changes. Ensure that all your changes have been applied correctly. When adding individual flows for each activity, if the data entered does not comply with the eligibility rules, the form will not prompt you at that point. It is only when you go back to the activity that these errors will be highlighted as shown in this screenshot. Therefore, ensure you comply with the eligibility rules. Let's now review some information regarding the budgets. Travel distance bands are used to keep track of the actual movement of participants, and these are calculated using the European Commission's distance calculator. There is a link to this within our guide for applicants, and we show you how to use the calculator in our pre-recorded webinar. However, we want to highlight one very important aspect. While the distance calculated on the distance calculator is for a one-way journey between two places, the corresponding distance band you should use provides costs for a return journey. Therefore, when selecting the distance band in your application form, you should choose the band that matches the distance given by the calculator and not double it or round it up to the next band. Should you select the wrong distance band, the national agency may correct and reduce the distance bands for your project, which will impact on your travel grant. Under exceptional costs, applicants can apply for expensive travel costs. For these costs to be eligible, applicants must be able to demonstrate with a clear breakdown and the justification that at least 70% of the travel cost is not covered by the unit costs applicable to your selected travel band. Should these costs be eligible, then only 80% of the eligible travel costs will be awarded. It is important to note that if you request expensive travel costs under the exceptional costs budget, you should not request it under the travel costs budget. Finally, we would like to inform applicants that only 25% of our overall Key Action 1 Youth budget has been allocated to activities involving partner countries. Therefore, you should think carefully about your selected partners. The priority is on program countries as much as possible. Lastly, we would like to emphasize how important it is for you to take a careful look at the entire section on budgets within the program guide and in our Key Action 1 Youth Guide for applicants, as there is more detailed guidance provided for each budget heading. Ensure you fully understand the budget and eligibility rules. For those of you who may already be familiar with the application forms from 2018, we would like to highlight some key changes from the 2018 online application forms. On the first page of the application, in the contact section, applicants are now required to select their activity types. This will tailor the form, triggering questions which are relevant to the activity type. This will also affect the activities you can record under the activities and budget sections. Therefore, ensure you have selected the correct activity from the outset. There have been some changes to the current application sharing feature. In 2018, when sharing the application form, your colleagues or partners were able to view the application as read-only. Under the 2019 call, the sharing feature now allows other users to also edit the application form. Partner mandates are now no longer available on our website, as mentioned, as these are generated from your application form based on the data entered on the participating organizations linked to their PIC data. Please ensure that all your partners' PIC details are correct and up to date before you begin completing the application form. Once you have completed all the partner information, you will be able to download the partner mandates. Mandates must be hand-signed by the legal representative from each partner organization and the legal representative of the applicant organization. Signed versions must be scanned and attached as an annex to the application form before submission. We will now take a few minutes to answer any specific queries you may have about the application form, so please ask your questions now. We would now like to launch a poll to gauge how many of you are in a position to submit an application. The poll will shortly be visible on your screens. I think it is visible now. So please respond to the question. Okay, so thank you for your answers. We can see from the results that quite a few organizations are now ready to submit an application. If you don't feel ready to submit an application just yet, the following slides will give you more information on the help and support materials that we have available. Here we have provided a link to the 2019 Programme Guide and specific page references to useful information for organizations planning to submit an Erasmus Plus application. On pages 84 to 87, you can find detailed breakdowns of each budget heading, the unit costs and eligible costs, specifically for Key Action 1 Youth. On pages 287 to 288, you will find some important information concerning the preparation, implementation and follow-up of mobility projects for young people and youth workers. On pages 313 to 318, you can find a really useful practical guide on the dissemination and exploitation of your project results. This slide provides some useful links and support from the NA. The guide for applicants is available on the Erasmus Plus website on the Apply for Youth Mobility Funding page. The guide is created by the National Agency to provide further guidance on applying for Key Action 1 Youth Mobility Funding. It should be read in conjunction with the 2019 Programme Guide. The pre-recorded webinar will also be available on the Erasmus Plus website within the next few days. It provides detailed guidance on completing the application form with an example walkthrough. The National Agency will also be offering opportunities to newcomers and organizations that have never had a successful Erasmus Plus project only to submit a project outline form. Applicants can submit these forms to the National Agency for an opportunity to discuss their project proposal with a member of the youth team over the phone. Calls will take place between the 7th and the 31st of January 2019, and all forms should be submitted to the National Agency by the 25th of January 2019. Please note, this applies only to round 1. You can find the project outline form on the Application Resources page of the Erasmus Plus website under Youth in the section marked 2019 Call for Applications. Finally, we would like to thank you for your participation in today's webinars. Here on the screen are the contact details for the Erasmus Plus helpline. Our team at the UKNA are available every day from Monday to Friday to answer any queries you may have. We'd also like to thank you for your questions already submitted. We will now stay for a further 10 minutes to answer any outstanding or further questions that you have.